Popular culture often frames magic as a tool for summoning, an invitation for something to emerge from the dark. But historically, occult practices were frequently defensive, focusing on the mechanics of isolation. A binding ritual is a form of supernatural quarantine. It is designed to trap and neutralize a threat that is already present, creating a permanent barrier between the entity and the outside world. In the winter of 1998, this distinction was ignored by a group of university students. They arrived in Vatra, Neagra, a remote village in the Carpathian Mountains, to investigate an abandoned stone house and the folklore surrounding its former owner, Ileana Moros. Decades earlier, the chanting and lights associated with Ileana's rituals vanished. Rather than reclaiming the property, the villagers treated the land as a restricted zone, leaving the structure to decay undisturbed. Daniel Petrescu, a skeptic leading a team of 3 classmates, viewed the house as a staging ground to expose these local fears as mere superstition. Modern skepticism often creates a specific vulnerability, the tendency to mistake a carefully engineered prison for a harmless ruin. Upon entering, the group encountered immediate physical anomalies. The air inside the stone walls was stagnant and unnaturally cold, while the wind from the forest seemed to stop abruptly at the threshold. As they moved through the interior, Alina discovered complex geometric symbols carved directly into the stone walls. This diagram illustrates the carving's logic. Concentric circles and inward-pointing lines create a closed perimeter, a pressure vessel keeping energy from leaking. The lines act as a funnel, directing spiritual pressure toward a focal point in the basement, keeping the trapped entity under constant weight. At the center of this focal point was the basement door, secured by a heavy iron chain. In traditional binding, iron is used to ground the spell, acting as the physical anchor that keeps the geometric circuit on the walls closed. Driven by the search for physical evidence, Daniel forced the rusted chain open. He didn't realize that by severing the iron, he was breaking the ground wire of the containment field. The group descended into a circular stone chamber. Inside a chalk circle on the floor sat a structure of weathered bones, arranged to mimic a seated human form. The temperature dropped further as a metallic scent filled the room. The bones began to slide across the stone, reassembling into an elongated, twisted frame that rose from the floor. A distorted voice emerged from the shifting structure, asking, "Still bound, who broke the seal?" Daniel remained frozen as the ritual markings on the floor began to glow with a dull red light. The iron chain was the final lock on a high-pressure system. Breaking it caused a total collapse of the containment field, releasing the energy Ileana had spent a lifetime suppressing. The survivors fled as the basement door slammed shut with unnatural force. The broken chain wrapped itself back around the wood as if it had never been cut, trapping Daniel in the darkness below. When the students finally forced the door open again, the basement was vacant. The bones and the glowing circle had vanished, and there was no trace of Daniel Petrescu. A village elder later explained the nature of the entity. It was a parasite that fed on presence, a mimic that could only take a stable physical shape by consuming the traits and identity of a living host. Ileana Moros had recognized that the only way to stop the mimic was to starve it. She spent her final years in total isolation, acting as a human barrier to ensure the entity remained dormant and formless. Mihai's camera footage revealed what happened after the seal broke. A single, degraded frame shows a figure standing in the center of the room. The figure in the footage was no longer a skeletal approximation. It bore the specific facial structure and dark eyes of Daniel, a sign that the parasite had successfully assimilated its first host in decades. The students didn't just stumble upon an old myth. Their intrusion provided a starving mimic with the human vessel it required to finally walk beyond the stone walls of the forest.